Transformers podcast. I am Casey Coggins, here with Alvin Hebert.
Good to be back.
And Andrew Lara.
Hello, hello.
After a week off, we are back at it again.
Back, baby.
Coming in to talk Heisman, the college football playoffs, the Final Four was announced. The NFL season has just decided to take a turn for the weird, wacky. Who knows what's going on anymore? So we'll go dive into that, and then as always, go into On Fire, In Dire, and Prophecies. But we're starting off with the Heisman because Saturday night a new Heisman was announced. Kyler Murray from OU. That makes it back-to-back OU Heisman winners. Following up with Baker's year last year, beating out Tua Tagovailoa. I think I got that right.
That right? Was that
I think I got that.
Practicing?
I think I got that. I mean, I've been staring at it for like the last 2 days, trying to looking at some of the numbers as to why Kyler Murray won the Heisman instead of Tua. Because Kyler
Murray played 4 quarters.
Because I didn't like the outcome. Kyler Murray's numbers are ridiculous, and like he did things that no other college quarterback has ever done. So like his numbers in his season was phenomenal. But I just think that Tua was the better player all year, and he got hurt by being hurt in a couple games, and he also got hurt by being so good. Because I pulled up the numbers. Tua in the fourth quarter threw 8 passes all season.
Mm-hmm. Never had to play the fourth quarter.
Kyler Murray threw 45. And 45 isn't a whole lot, I guess, but Kyler Murray threw the ball 340 times all season. So that's like a sixth of his throws in the fourth quarter. So you look at the numbers, and I can spout out the numbers really quick for both players. Tua threw for 3,300 yards, a little over 3,300 yards, 37 touchdowns, and had 4 interceptions. He had a QBR of 94.2. He ran for 190 yards and 5 touchdowns. And I think
that's Tua's numbers.
That's Tua's numbers in the 12 games they played. And I really think that the conference championship game, he didn't play great, and he got hurt, went out of the game, and Alabama ended up winning still with their backup. And like, we kind of forget that the first 2 games of the year for Alabama, not only did he not play the fourth quarter, but they were splitting reps between him and Jalen Hurts. Mm-hmm. So not only did he not play fourth quarters, but he also didn't play in like half of 2 games because they were trying to give Jalen Hurts some play time too. So that was Tua's numbers. Kyler Murray threw for a little over 4,000 yards, had 40 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a QBR of 96.0, ran for 892 yards and 11 touchdowns. The running is where Kyler Murray blows Tua out of the water, but that's because Kyler Murray is a more explosive athlete than Tua. Tua only runs to like when he has to.
When you got scrambled.
Where Kyler Murray, they actually ran plays for him to run, and he had those spectacular, like, typical college quarterback runs. Like when you think of the Johnny Manziels and the Baker Mayfields and the Robert Griffin IIIs and some of these other running quarterbacks that succeed in college and win Heismans, they have those runs where they roll out right, and then they're about to get sacked, and they break the tackle, and they spin around, and they come all the way back to the left side, and they're running downfield, and they cut across, and they run like 120 yards on a 60-yard touchdown run, and it's like, oh my God, did you see that play?
That sounds like Cal and Stanford.
Where with Tua, he said hut, he let the ball go, and his receivers ended up just catching the ball for a touchdown, and it was just kind of like it was like watching an NFL team. Like, it was like watching, the Saints or the Rams or the Chiefs, where it's just like their offense is so explosive that it looks nonchalant almost because of how good their team is, and how good Tua was. So Kyler Murray threw the ball more than Tua, played more than Tua, ran the ball more than Tua. So his numbers are, of course, going to look better because he had more opportunity.
We call that inflation.
But Tua was, again, the better player all year, other than he had the one bad game against Georgia in the conference championship, where he went 10 of 25. I think he had a touchdown and 2 interceptions, and then left the game early with his ankle injury. Where Kyler Murray's worst game was Army, where he was, I think he was 11 of 15, if I remember that correctly. And then he played, I think it was Oklahoma State, where he had a bad game. But he didn't really, his bad games didn't come in the national spotlight. I want to try to remember what was his bad game. But let's just I want to get y'all's thoughts on who y'all thought should win the Heisman, and why you think that. So, Andrew, who do you think should have won the Heisman?
I think Kyler Murray should have won it. I don't see any arguments against it. There are arguments against it, but it's just a matter of Tua didn't have all. If he would have had the full
games.
Yeah, if he had played the fourth quarter, if they needed him to play in the fourth quarter, if he didn't split those first 2 games, he got all those reps, and yeah, he could have easily taken it. But yeah, just those number of pass attempts in the fourth quarter throughout the season, that's a big number right there.
What was it, 45 to
8?
8, yeah, see. But yeah, I don't argue the decision.
Okay, so Texas Tech was the other game for Kyler Murray where he didn't play the best. They still scored 51 points, but he was 20 of 35, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but he had 100 yards on the ground and a touchdown. And that's where I think college football does certain quarterbacks justice more than others. Because Kyler Murray had 50 more attempts. He had 40 more completions. He had a grand total of about 1,400 more yards and 9 more touchdowns than Tua did. But I think the Heisman gets into the point where it's like, are we actually giving the award to the most outstanding player, or like the MVP almost? Are we giving it to the guy who was the best player, the most important player to their team, or are we giving it to the guy who puts up the great numbers? and unfortunately in college football it's called the Heisman instead of the MVP. So you can kind of skew some things. Before I continue,
well, that's because college players have no value.
Right, that's true. I mean, they have a lot of value for colleges. Colleges, big time football universities are not hurting for money.
That's for sure.
Alvin, what do you think about the Heisman?
He doesn't know who won it.
I just found out the winner today. But
Slacker.
But I always thought Murray was going to win it just because, again, I feel like he was putting up the better numbers. Or, I mean, his numbers.
Have you watched the Big 12?
No, I don't watch no podcast Big 12. But I mean, you hear him on it's always him and Tua on the highlights. It was either going to be out of those two, but again, Tua not having to play in the fourth quarter, I felt like played against him, and Murray's all around numbers just stacked up better against Tua's just because of that. And the game that you was talking about against Army, he was 11 for 15, 165, 3 touchdowns and an INT.
Right.
And that was one of his.
That was his. He had two. He had two bad games. I'm okay with saying Army was a bad game for him because he threw 3 touchdowns out of his 11 completions, but that's stuff that Tim Tebow did, and I don't think Tim Tebow was necessarily playing great quarterback position. He was a good college quarterback.
He was a halfback.
So I was curious because Will Greer out of West Virginia finished 4th, and he had 3,864 passing yards and 37 touchdowns. So he had 3 less touchdowns passing and 100 or 200 yards passing less than Kyler Murray, and he had 1 less game to do it in. I don't have all the numbers here for him, but he's another guy where he's playing in Big 12 football where his numbers are better, and Dwayne Haskins' numbers were better than Kyler Murray, so it can't just be the numbers for Kyler Murray that went out over Tua, because if you're going to give it to the person who had the best numbers, then you gave it to the wrong person. For the season, Greer was 37 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 397 or 266 of 397. So he even threw the ball. He threw the ball more, and he doesn't have he's not the runner that Kyler Murray is. But again,
that's another thing that played to
Kyler play. That gives Kyler Murray another statistical advantage because you're not going to run Tua on a read option like they will Kyler. Kyler's a better runner, and he's throwing for so many yards, and statistically Kyler Murray's numbers are better than Tua. But I wouldn't draft Kyler Murray if I was an NFL team.
Well, nobody is, because he's going to be going to Major League.
But if he wasn't, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, as an NFL prospect,
you wouldn't draft him?
I would not draft him.
Nah.
Because he's worse than Johnny Manziel was.
In what?
And I don't think Johnny Manziel was going to be suitable for the NFL. Baker was on the very threshold of what I thought was going to be able to last in the NFL. I think he has 2 or 3 inches on Kyler Murray, and he has 20, 30 pounds on him. Kyler Murray isn't an NFL quarterback in any shape other than his arm strength. But Tua, I would, if I was any team in the league, I would pick Tua. Number 1.
He's more of a pure passer.
If I was the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, I guess Aaron Rodgers is up there in age. And same with Brady and Breeze. Like, no quarterback to me would be safe if I had the number 1 pick and Tua was on the draft board. That's how good I think Tua is. Tua is the best college quarterback that I've seen since Andrew Luck.
Who?
Andrew Luck.
Who's that?
The guy in Indianapolis who just came back from injury, not playing for like
5 fucking years.
They finally found him.
They finally found him?
Yeah.
But if he didn't have that injury issue, if they would have given him an offensive line and not just said, all right, well, you don't have any help really. Let's just
do this.
Yeah. And he won back-to-back division titles, went to the playoffs his first 3 years, putting up ridiculous numbers. And even now, when you didn't really know what to expect out of him this season, he has the Colts at, I think they're 7-6, right on the cusp of the playoffs.
Yeah, they're right there fighting for a wild card.
But Tua is better than Kyler Murray, and I think it's the plague of the flashiness wins the MVP. The flashiness wins the Heisman. Like Steph won unanimous MVP that season because it was the 400 three-pointers made season. It was like the flashiness of his season that got him a unanimous MVP. It was the flashiness of the triple-doubles that got Russell Westbrook the MVP. It was the flashiness of the numbers for Derrick Rose that got him the MVP. But can you necessarily say that those guys were more valuable to their team than LeBron or any of the other guys? Can you necessarily say that Steph Curry is more valuable to his team than Russell Westbrook or Kevin Durant when Kevin Durant was on the Thunder still? No, you just go with the flashiness, which I think kind of doesn't do it any justice. If you want to say who's the best player in college football, say who's the best player in college football, and don't sit there and let the flashiness of playing in a conference that the worst team averages 35 points. Like, the number shouldn't skew your vote for the Heisman. You should be able to see, okay, well, Tua didn't play fourth quarters because they were up by so much, because he was so damn good. That are we going to, like, was that one game against Georgia that detrimental, or are you saying that the entire season Kyler Murray was better? Because up until about a month ago, you weren't hearing that. So that's my frustration with Kyler Murray winning the Heisman, because Kyler Murray's numbers again were phenomenal. He was phenomenal. He was the second best player in college football this year on the offensive side. But Tua was better all year. And I just...
Except when it mattered.
He got hurt. He had... Yeah, you have bad games. That happens. Vince Young had bad games, and Reggie Bush had bad games, and they still gave it to the guy who was a little flashier. They gave it to the guy who back juked on the sideline. Vince Young was sitting there just throwing deep balls and running straight line faster than everybody. Reggie Bush was returning punts where he was going sideline to sideline and juking people, and he was the flashy player. And look what ended the Trojan era. Look what happened in the championship game in transition time. Look what's about to happen to OU in the college football playoffs. You don't think that Nick Saban's like, did they really just give Kyler Murray the Heisman over Tua? Like, did that really just happen?
About to give Vince Young.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, OU might have a chance if Tua can't go. He has his high ankle sprain that he's trying to heal before the game. But, I mean, the odds is that Tua is only going to be about 70%. But if we remember back a couple months ago, there was another game where he was about 70%, and that was against LSU. And he just dominated that game. He threw his first interception of the season in that game because LSU has the best defense in college football. They
got stomped though.
Yeah, and Tua still ended up running for the 44-yard touchdown and just running over LSU. When you picked LSU to upset Bama, I picked them to cover 13.5.
None of those happened.
So, I mean, Bama is overall just a better team. But OU has an injury issue too with Hollywood Brown, their best receiver. But if there's a weakness that Nick Saban has, it's athletic quarterbacks. If you look back at, like, other than the LSU losses, because the LSU losses are like defensive, like the 9-6 games where it's not really LSU's offense that wins them the game. It's LSU's defense wins in spite of the LSU offense. But you look at the losses to A&M, to Auburn, the loss to... Oh, who did they lose to? The games against Clemson that they've had in the past few years. All of those teams have one thing in common: running, scrambling quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson, Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, and then now they're going to have to go up against Kyler Murray. In this Bama defense isn't as good as the Bama defense of last year or 2 years ago. So there's a slight chance that OU is able to score a lot of points on Bama. The problem is I don't see Bama not scoring on a drive. If Bama punts in this game, I will be shocked. I will be shocked if Bama punts in this game.
This is Madden. We don't punt.
OU is going to need to score 60 points to beat Bama.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And I don't see that happening. That's my view. Alvin, what's your take on the Bama-OU matchup?
Like I said, I always feel like when you believe in Oklahoma, they're gonna let you down. And
This isn't Bob Stoops OU. This is Lincoln Riley OU.
That's all right.
This is next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Lincoln Riley.
that'll add to another distraction to them if they're all like, Lincoln Riley's going to the Cowboys to coach.
If the Cowboys weren't doing so well, I think that would still be in the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. But I just think Bama overall is better. Like I said, even though Murray won, I do think Tua, like, talent-wise is better. Like, as a pure passer, I do think he is better than Murray. But even though Murray's a more running quarterback, I see Bama just smashing them.
Smacking that ass, smacking that ass. Andrew, your take on Bama OU?
Man, it's hard to have a different opinion when it's like this. You can't. There's no arguing it. You know, we were talking about it earlier. The only reason they have the playoffs is just who's going to play Bama, who's going to lose to Bama next. Everybody wants Bama.
Can't give it to Bama all the time.
But nobody can handle Bama.
Right. It's just it was the common talking point this whole year for Bama was well, Bama's defense isn't, like I said, isn't as good as it has been.
Mm-hmm.
Bama's defense isn't the defense with
They've been saying that for the past couple seasons.
Yeah, but
with Hightower and Foster. Like they had a defense in I think 2011 where all 11 starters are in the NFL now. Like that's how good their defense was back like a few years ago.
But you can't so much take away from this defense because it's not as good, but it's still top tier fucking defense.
Yeah,
college defense. It's not LSU defense, but it's still a dominant defense.
Yeah, it's very, very good. But it's what are you going to do against Bama when they have a quarterback? Because they haven't had a quarterback like this, like ever.
They got two right now, essentially, because Jalen Hurts, he showed that he could play. I know, like, in the bowl game, like, he had to pull him and all that stuff, but when he came in for Tua, when
did he get pulled
hurt,
or didn't he get hurt?
I thought he got pulled, right? Hurts?
Last season?
He got pulled.
Yeah, he got pulled.
He didn't get hurt. No, they were losing to Georgia. He wasn't playing well. At halftime, Saban started Tua going into the rest of the game, and he ends up throwing, I think, for 3 touchdowns and the touchdown in overtime that wins the championship.
He set the world on fire. But even this game, he comes in to cover Tua. He did what he had to do.
So yards per game, Alabama was 10th in defense in yards per game. So still a top tier defense. But yeah, that's just AJ McCarron is probably the best Alabama quarterback that Nick Saban has had. Which really isn't saying much because that also includes Greg McElroy and Jalen Hurts and I'm missing somebody. They haven't had a very good quarterback. I think their best quarterback in school history is Joe Namath. I believe he went to Alabama. They don't have a rich quarterback history. I mean, they didn't have a Heisman until Mark Ingram won it, and now they have 2 in Ingram and Henry. They both won it. So they don't have offensively. Alabama's never been.
They've never been flashy.
Yeah, light the world on fire. Yeah, Joe Namath went to Alabama. So this article from October 18th listed the 5 best quarterbacks in Alabama football history. 5, Greg McElroy. 4, Pat Trammell. And this is 1961. 3, Jay Barker. Never heard of the guy. He was early 90s. 2, Joe Namath. And 1, A.J. McCarron. Again, not rich quarterback history out of OU. And so their defense is not, it's not LSU, but it's not OU.
That says a lot.
So we're all on board on Alabama beating OU, right?
100%.
Now, the more interesting game out of the college football playoffs is Clemson and Notre Dame. Two of the other undefeated teams, because I believe Clemson is undefeated, right? I'm not crazy.
13-0.
So, Clemson has a top 4 pick on the defensive line. Their defensive front is probably the best in college football. Their front 7 might be the best in college football. Notre Dame has a very good defense as well. their offense got a spark lit under it, but when they changed to, I think Ian is his first name, Ian Book, they benched their starter, went to the backup, their offense started playing a lot better. I really don't know what to think of this game. Like, I don't know which way to go, because Clemson is going to be relying on a true freshman starter, which Georgia did last year, and they ended up beating OU in the semifinal. But Clemson's defense is so damn good that I don't know what cancels out for me. Because Notre Dame is well coached, they execute well, they don't necessarily have a strength that overpowers teams, but they don't really have a weakness. Whereas Clemson, their strength is their front seven. Their secondary can be possibly taken advantage of. And like I said, they're starting a true freshman because of the whole benching of Kelly Bryant earlier in the year. And Lawrence is going to be sunshine pretty much as their starting quarterback.
Sunshine.
But I mean, I lean Clemson, as much as I hate to see a Bama-Clemson championship game again. I just think Clemson is just overall talent-wise just more overpowering than Notre Dame is. Notre Dame played, a decent schedule to get here. They played Michigan, and they played some of these other ranked teams, and then as the season went on, like USC went 500, like Michigan got blown out by Ohio State. So none of the teams that Notre Dame ended up beating on their way here ended up really being these great teams that you were hoping they would be. So I lean Clemson in this game. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I'm going with Notre Dame. I don't know if it's just the bias in me or the fact that I'm tired of seeing Clemson and
Bama.
Yeah, I'm going for the dog.
Going for Ruby.
Yeah,
that's what you said.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a nice little wrench in the mix.
Right. I mean, like, I'm looking at. So, I forgot. Syracuse actually had a good season. They played Syracuse and absolutely demolished them, 36-3. Stanford at the time.
17.
Yeah, at the time, Stanford had just lost the week before. That was a 7-8 matchup. Stanford ended up going 8-4 on the season. So again, not just overpowering Stanford. Michigan, like I said, they had a pretty good season. I mean, they were almost in the college football playoffs if they handle Ohio State, and they ended up getting beat 62-39 to Ohio State. And that's really Notre Dame's best win on the season. They had some close calls against Pitt. Only won by 5. Only won by a touchdown at USC. Beat Ball State by 8. Vanderbilt by 5. But the Ball State Michigan Vanderbilt game, I believe, was before they went to Ian Book and they were playing Wimbush a lot. And so since they went to Wimbush, their offense has been scoring a lot more. So that's why I'm so unsure of Notre Dame. Alvin, what's your take?
Oh, I was leaning with Andrew. I was going with Notre Dame. Like, I know Clemson has that star defensive lineman, but I feel like for a defensive player in like bowl games to make a good impact, I feel like they're either like linebackers or DBs. I feel like it's harder to make an impact when you're a D lineman because I see many of them get shut down.
Do you remember the Alabama-Texas national championship game when Colt McCoy got hurt? Do you remember that game?
No.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Garrett Gilbert came in as a freshman to replace Colt McCoy, and his first pass was intercepted by a defensive tackle in return for a touchdown. Funny enough, that kind of happened again in the national championship game against one of the national championship games Alabama won in the last 10 years. But Alabama has had monster defensive linemen that have made tons of plays in national championship and college football and bowl games. So defensive linemen can still wreak havoc, especially when you're as good as Christian Wilkins is. Because it's not just him either. It's kind of like the Rams front four. Like how disruptive the Rams front four can be with Donald and Sue and Fowler, or the Bears with Hakeem Hicks and Khalil Mack and who's on the other side of Khalil Mack?
Isn't that Hicks that's on the other side?
No, he's the D tackle. Hicks is in the middle. But you can have multiple guys where it's like the Broncos when they had Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, and even this year with Bradley Chubb and Von Miller, is if you try to focus on Von Miller so much, it's going to open up your other guys. So if you try to focus on Christian Wilkins so much, it's going to open up those other guys to disrupt the run and the pass, so to disrupt the offense. And the great players elevate the players around them, because like if as a defensive lineman you elevate defensive backs by getting pressure on the quarterback, they're not able to get their feet underneath them, they have to throw the ball quicker, so the receiver might not be breaking on the ball the way they should, and it allows the defensive back to jump in there to get interceptions. So I think defensive linemen can have just as big of an impact as linebackers and defensive backs.
No, they definitely can. I just I feel like in the big games, like those players don't shine as much as they would as a normal game, just because now their numbers definitely, the target is definitely on their backs to make sure that they don't have a major impact. I know you already made some examples on some players that did, but I don't know if those were the players that were the best defensive player on that team or whatever that was known.
I mean,
but,
to be fair, Alabama's defense has always kind of been three layers of greatness.
Yeah, so Bama's, they're like an outlier, right?
Right, yeah, not fair to compare. But but like I said, Clemson's front seven, like their defensive line is the best in college football. It just makes, I think that their defensive front is going to win the trenches. And I don't know how many times you've heard the sayings like games are won in the trenches with offensive line and defensive line play. If your offensive line wins regularly, you're going to move the ball well. If your defensive line wins regularly, you're going to prevent them from moving the ball well. So I think that's why I think Clemson wins, and we see another Clemson-Bama rematch. But y'all are both going Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Are we all on the same path as Bama's winning the national championship?
Yeah.
Hands down.
Because that's where I'm leaning to. I mean, the outlier here is
easy peasy.
Is if Tua's not fully healthy, it's not as like
it's a closer game.
Yeah.
It's more interesting.
Yeah. Right. Like if Tua's not 100% against OU, I can see OU maybe pulling out a win.
Do we even have like a percentage of what upset possibility is?
This is the largest spread of the college football semifinal. I believe it's 8.5 for Bama OU. And I mean, even Clemson Notre Dame, Clemson's favored by like 7. Let's see. Pulling it up. No, that did not show me yet. Stupid internet. But yeah, I think Alabama was favored by. Oh yeah, I forgot Baylor got into a bowl. They don't even have it on here. Nah, I don't see it. But yeah, I think it's Bama's favored by. Y'all are the ones on the laptops. Favored by.
You say you got it.
Clemson's favored by I think 7, maybe 7.5, which is like combined the biggest spread in so far in the college football playoffs. But it just seems like Bama's just too good this year. They're just. And so again, if Tua is fully healthy come playoff time, there's no way that they're losing. So I just wanted to get into a little bit of NFL because, as I brought up before,
it's a good week
before we started recording. 3 weeks ago, if we were talking NFL. We would say, okay, well, like, are there going to be any teams that can beat New Orleans, Los Angeles Rams, and Kansas City? And the overwhelming answer to that was no. Like, those were definitely the best 3 teams. And since 3 weeks ago, the Rams have lost to the Bears. The Saints have lost to the Cowboys. The Chiefs have lost their starting running back.
They didn't lose, but they lost their running back.
They lost enough.
I mean, they didn't look like the same team against the Ravens this week.
Yeah. Well, Ravens' defense is also really good.
Right, but their
offense was
They scored 24 points and the game went to overtime. That's not something that you see from the Chiefs this year. But you see, like, the Seahawks are on a run. The Cowboys are on a roll. The Ravens have been playing well.
The
Chargers are playing
still sneakily.
You see so many other teams that. Like, they've been joking about when they show that in the hunt graphic on TV where they're like, here are the division leaders, here are the 2 wild cards, and here are the teams that can still make the playoffs. They're only a couple games out. That's a lot of fucking teams right now. Right now, in the AFC, Baltimore is the 6th seed at 7-6. Cincinnati is 5-8. So if they win out, they still have a chance to make it into the playoffs. The Browns are, I believe, 2 games out. They're 5-7-1. The Broncos are 6-7. The Titans are 7-6. Miami 7-6. Indianapolis is 7-6.
Steelers 7-5-1.
Right, and they're the division leader right now.
So it doesn't even matter, Alvin.
That's technicalities.
That tie should drop you down, bro.
And that's the AFC. Is you have 10 teams out of 16 that are like
in the hunt.
and that didn't include the Browns at 5-7-1. And I'm not really including the Bengals because if they win another game this year, that's going to all props to Marvin Lewis. But you don't have anybody healthy. And then the NFC, like Detroit's 5-8, and I bring them up because Minnesota's the 6th seed at 6-6, 6-1. So they still have.
Wait, so does the Buccaneers still have a chance at this?
Yeah.
At 5-8?
Yeah. Exactly. Like
that's what happens when 3 teams or 4 teams hold all the wins.
Right.
The
gatekeepers.
Yeah.
Atlanta at 4-9 can't make the playoffs because they can only go 7-9. Minnesota can go 6-9-1, and so that one in the tie column elevates them. I believe
that whole tie shit.
Believe. But yeah, you like. There's so. The Giants can make the playoffs still. The Giants can still win their division.
How is that when Cowboys are 2? How many?
3 games ahead of them.
Yeah.
They both end up 8-8. If the Cowboys lose out and the Giants win out,
that'll drive my heart to jump out my chest.
I don't know the tiebreakers, so I haven't looked into that. But if the Giants win out, that means they split their matchups, which then I think it goes into division games.
Yeah. And then after that goes, I think, head-to-head.
Yeah.
Well, it goes head-to-head, then division, then conference.
Yeah.
So it just gets wacky, as what I've been calling these last few weeks.
Wacky inflatable 2-man.
Because Miami, the way that they beat the Patriots was
sheer luck.
I call that Gronk.
Was absolutely ridiculous. And I was listening to Dan Lebitard, who's Miami-based, and he had Kenyon Drake, who scored the touchdown on, and was interviewing him about the play. And he goes, walk us through that play. And he goes, well, it was drawn up to get me the ball. Like, the way that he got the ball, where they threw the curl, and then there was a lateral to Devontae Parker, and then the lateral to him, that was all drawn up. And then after that, it was kind of like a
freelance.
Yeah, the backyard football kind of stuff. And what's ridiculous to me is that, like, Kenyon Drake runs to the middle of the field, and then he, like, hesitates, and he, like, looks around. Like, you can kind of see there's, like, a millisecond where you can see him, like, see where everybody's at, and then he just cuts up field and just takes off, and he outruns everybody. And then here comes stumbling, bumbling Gronk.
Stumbling and bumbling.
To try to tackle him. And I mean, yeah, we brought it up where Belichick he didn't have his best moment putting that defense out there.
75 yards.
They're going to have to run a play like that. So just keep your regular defense in. Like, that's the only way you're giving up a touchdown like that.
Yeah, 75 yards. You're playing deep. You're giving them to underneath.
And so Miami kept their season alive by winning that game. I mean, if they lost, it wasn't going to absolutely wreck their season. But that's a game that if you win, it does so many things for the locker room, for the team, momentum to go into the next week. And
well, not only that, they have Bolden, that was their former running back for the Patriots, scored twice on them. So they're just jacked up.
And so, next week they have the Vikings. They're at the Vikings, who just fired their offensive coordinator because they couldn't do anything against Seattle. And then they play the Jags, who haven't looked the same all year. And then they end it at Buffalo. And Buffalo isn't going to have anything to play for other than NFL draft pick seeding. So, like, all 3 of these games are winnable, and you can see the Miami Dolphins go 10-6 in a season where they started Brock Osweiler for, I think, 4 games.
Yeah, when Tannehill was hurt.
Yeah, so it's they traded Jarvis Landry in the offseason. They traded for a running back. Like Ndamukong Suh, they let him go. They, like, you would think before the season started that Miami would be lucky to go 8-8. And now they're sitting here and there's a possibility that they make the playoffs because of a game winner like this. So that was part of the wacky weekend. Another part of the wacky weekend was the way the Cowboys game ended. Because I
hacky sack and overtime.
I'm decorating the house for Christmas, and I'm walking by and I see it's in overtime. Well, I watched the end of the fourth quarter, so I watched it go into overtime. And I'm watching that drive, and I'm like, when I see Dak Prescott not recognize the blitz and just immediately throw the ball to an Eagles defender, and then the ball pops up right into Amari Cooper's hands, and he just kind of walks in for a touchdown to win the game. My jaw hit the floor. I was like, that was...
Amari Cooper's making Dak Prescott look good.
Yes.
Not even really, because Dak Prescott still looks bad.
He had the best the best bad game in
because
the NFL.
Amari Cooper's getting touchdowns but getting wins. Dak Prescott isn't doing much. He doesn't look good. He's playing like ass.
He played all right. He played amazing in the fourth quarter and overtime.
Yeah,
he played like shit in the first 3 quarters. But I think it was last week where he had a decent game against the Saints. That was just bad offense all around. But y'all know my stance on the Cowboys and just feeding Zeke.
Yeah, of course.
Feed Zeke. It's one of those flow charts. Cowboys, do you want to win the game? Yes. Feed Zeke. No. Don't feed Zeke. End of flow chart.
Let Dak throw the ball.
Yeah. So, I mean, Dak threw the ball 54 times. He was 42 of 54, which is actually really good for Dak Prescott. 42 of 54. But he had 2 interceptions.
His wide receivers are making him look good.
Amari Cooper had 217 yards receiving.
Yeah, Amari Cooper's making him look good.
One of them was a 75-yard pass. So, but Zeke carried the ball 28 times for 113 yards.
Caught the ball 12 times.
Yeah, for 79. Zeke is the way the Cowboys need to win games. And I've said this many, many times. And I pulled up the numbers where they're like, now I think they're 21-6 when he runs the ball for gets the ball 25 times. Like, if he runs for 25 times or more, they're 21-6 in his career. Again, Cowboys, do you want to win? Yes? Give that man the ball.
Feed Zeke.
If it doesn't work in the first quarter, guess what you do in the second quarter?
You feed Zeke.
Guess what you do in the third quarter if it didn't work in the first and the second quarters?
Don't let Dak throw the ball.
Don't let...
The only time that I want to see Dak Prescott throw the ball more than 30 times is if they end up going down 48-2. That's when you're like, we're not winning this game. Sorry, Zeke. We want to feed you, but you're gaining too much weight. We're just gonna have to see what Dak can do.
But this game was perfect to show he's a dual threat. If you're not going to run the ball, have him in the passing game.
He is like the new prototype for NFL running backs. is what you see in the NFL today. You see Alvin Kamara, you see Christian McCaffrey, you see Todd Gurley, you see Zeke, you see Le'Veon, you see...
You don't see Le'Veon.
Yeah.
No, I was about to say, you saw Le'Veon, just like you saw Kareem Hunt. But even like for my Lions, Kerryon Johnson is a guy that you can throw the ball to, you can run the ball with. He doesn't have to come out for Theo Riddick. Like, you don't need to put in a pass-catching running back on 3rd and long, because your running back that you have can catch the pass and make something happen. Like, you see the best running backs in football, Saquon Barkley. Like, you see what the numbers that he's putting up. He's number 2 in the NFL in yards from scrimmage, behind Zeke. So you need to utilize that running back to continue to win football games.
I'm worried about that offensive line too, man. They can't pick up pressure with the shit.
Yeah, they're having some issues, but
and when Connor Williams had to come in for Zach Martin, I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah, that's not a good sign. Whoever came in, not just Connor Williams, whoever came in for Zach Martin, losing Zach Martin, who's arguably the best offensive lineman in football, isn't a good sign. It's one of those. I have a few things that I'm really obsessed about when it comes to football, and coaching is one of those things. Well, coaching and scheming. Okay, well, our offensive line isn't very good. What can alleviate that? Screen passes, quick slants, little 10-yard fade back shoulder throws, draw plays.
3-step draw plays, quick plays.
Bootlegs. Like, start using a Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak, like zone read blocking.
Pistol offense. Yeah,
you utilize, you have to figure out, okay, well, that guy's going to be a problem on the other side. So let's utilize a player who is great on the defensive line in the division for the Cowboys, Fletcher Cox. How are we going to prevent Fletcher Cox from murdering Dak Prescott?
You gotta murder him.
You double team him. Okay, well, if you double team him, that gives illegal.
One-time penalty.
That gives the rest. That gives the rest of the defensive line one-on-ones. Okay, well, you motion your offensive line to the left, so it prevents kind of a side pocket.
You can hide the chop block.
And as long as nobody's engaged with him, you can go low. So if he's not getting blocked up high, you can go at the knees. So let a running back go and do the whole Shane Falco thing in the replacements. Remember that, where he's like, let him through, and the linebacker comes through and he like drop kicks him, or whatever he does.
Doesn't he flip him?
Yeah, he does. He does something, but he teaches him a lesson for that one play. I mean, he takes the loss of down and everything, but
didn't they also do that on Remember the Titans? Sunshine? Let him run through.
Yeah.
Didn't they do that on Longest Yard?
Yeah.
Didn't he also throw the football at the referee's nutsack?
Twice. Once was on 4th down. How ballsy was that?
Nope.
So, any other wackiness in the NFL that y'all want to talk about? I don't want to highlight that the Seahawks got away with a block field goal when it should have been penalized, which turned the game.
Well, the Raiders actually, what was it, the block punt? 2 of them?
Yeah.
By Whitehead?
Yeah. The Steelers are a mess. Like, again, this NFL season has just been flipped on its head, because
Steelers
they were in the 2 they were in the 2 seed, and now they're fighting to win the division.
Yeah.
Because they've lost 3 in a row now.
And it's all because James Conner is out. They haven't looked the same.
That's not the reason, because he was there for the Chargers game.
Wasn't that a game he got hurt?
Yeah, but they were up by 20 points going into the second half. It's not like losing him should have cost them the game. Before we move on to On Fire and Dire and Prophecies, anything else in the NFL you want to touch on? No, we're good?
We're good with the NFL.
Okay, well, let's go into On Fire. Andrew, who's on fire for you?
My fire pick. I got the Dallas Cowboys.
Hey.
They're picking up some.
I just asked you if you wanted to talk about more NFL. Jesus.
Well, I can't just hey.
We them boys.
Yeah, man, I still don't have faith in them because I've learned my lesson.
You're a Cowboys fan?
Yes, I've learned in my 28 years of living that you just can't trust the Cowboys.
Almost 29.
Yeah, man, we gotta talk about that.
Not quite 30 yet.
Yeah. Man, you can't talk. You old as shit. Pretty sure you're older than this house we're in.
Yeah, we all are. I mean, it was built in 07.
Man, you don't gotta talk. Don't make it even. Realize the fact that Alvin is old. But yeah, man, I'm going with the Cowboys. It's just looking good. I mean, they're not looking good. They're getting wins.
They're looking fabulous.
They're getting wins.
The defense is great.
Defense is looking good.
Man,
for once, the defense is what's carrying the team.
Leighton Vander Esch is like creeping up on Derwin James for defensive rookie of the year. But I mean,
dude, he's the third-ranked linebacker in the season right now.
He's playing phenomenally. But I mean, Derwin James is still the defensive rookie of the year. But it's just they have something that's like inspiring them. They're playing inspired, and which is really sad.
Jerry probably said he'd die if they win the Super Bowl. Hey, you don't want a Super Bowl?
Well, I mean, if that was the case, I mean, he must have said it not in Jason Garrett's presence. Because if Jason Garrett was present, he'd be like, "Shit, I have to like."
Because fuck, my days are numbered.
Jason Garrett's like his third son, so
guess I gotta find a new dick to suck.
As far as favorite sons go for Jerry, it's Jason Garrett and then Stephen Jones.
Forgot Tony Romo.
I think Tony's still up there too.
He doesn't play for him anymore.
Maybe Dez.
Yeah, Dez is right there too.
Or Jason Witten, since he's over there sidebarring with him to come back.
Not Jason Garrett. Jason Witten said that's not real.
He says no.
Yeah, he was like, no, that's not happening.
Jerry Jones, when he was asked about it, was like, we just, sat down and we talked. Yeah.
Jason, you happy here? Because
Jerry Jones
your
probably
commentating sucks.
Jerry Jones probably thinks it's like 2006 or something.
He's still trying to get Roy Williams again.
Both of them.
Need one on the offense and one on the defense. Will be the Dallas Williams.
At least the one on the defense get hit.
The one on the offense can hit too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alvin, who's on fire for you?
My fire is Luka Doncic.
Who?
Rookie of the year.
Yeah, I think he's rookie of the year. 18 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 44 field goal percentage, 38 3-point percentage, and that 11-point fourth quarter against the Rockets is.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if the season ended today, Dallas is in the 8th seed. I mean, to be fair, the Thunder are in the 1 seed, so take with that what you want. But
just that game what he did to Houston. I mean, I know Houston don't got their defenders, but bro,
I mean, Doncic is like I just said about running backs in the NFL. Like there's a new mold for players in basketball. Some of the best players in the league are those like 6'8" point forwards. Like you look at what Giannis is doing, what LeBron has always done.
Durant,
Ben Simmons, Doncic, like those are the types of guys that you like. Even for the Spurs, like we don't really have a true point guard right now with Murray hurt, so DeMar DeRozan is our main playmaker, and he's 6'7". So the Doncic is that new mold, and yeah, he's playing extremely well. And Dallas is not looking like the team that people thought that. Like Dallas before the season started, you kind of expected to be in the same like the Phoenix Suns, not quite as bad as the Suns, but like
down there at the bottom.
Yeah, it was supposed to be. If you look,
it's a hard out.
From bottom to top, you were supposed to see Phoenix, Sacramento, Dallas. Those were your three worst teams in the West. And Sacramento's in the 9 seed right now, and Dallas is in the 8 seed. And Houston, I believe, is the second worst team in the West right now. So it's kind of crazy what's going on. And as for my fire, I put the Packers because you finally fired your coach. Which kind of what I said with the Cowboys is like a spark was lit. You have something to play for. There's meaning to your season now, and your backs are against the wall. And everybody was like, "Well, Aaron Rodgers didn't look like he was playing well." And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but
he was on purpose not playing well.
But
he was trying to get his coach fired.
It's hard for me to not believe that Aaron Rodgers was doing some of the things he was doing to get McCarthy out so he could just say, all right, I run the team now.
Well, did you not see like that little smirk that he does? He'll just throw out bad passes. He goes, He'll look to the sideline at McCarthy like,
The only thing
got your number, dog.
The only thing that he needed to do was the Earl Thomas flip the bird. Like that was the only thing that was missing.
And say relax. We know a diehard Packers fan, and he also mentioned the same thing to me.
Like it just seemed
he thought he was playing bad just to get McCarthy fired.
Because even in his press conferences, he was kind of throwing shade.
Yeah.
Like he was
about the play calling.
As that commie video, he was trying to he was tired of McCarthy taking his clout.
Try to take my clout. But do you believe that the Browns' coaching job is a better coaching job than the Packers right now?
Yes.
At least that's what people are saying.
Yes. The Browns are a lot younger, and they don't have as much money tied up in their quarterback.
So who would you rather coach, LeBron James or the Bulls?
That's
because LeBron James is not a coach.
I would rather coach LeBron James because all I would have to do is go to LeBron James and be like, "Hey man, just don't get me fired. Do what you want."
Yeah, that works until
we're working together. I mean, there are many instances where you can see the coach is your best player. Like Peyton Manning had a ton of regular season success. He won a couple Super Bowls, but he didn't have necessarily the same kind of playoff success, but I would say that's more on the defensive side of the ball than the Peyton Manning side of the ball.
I think it's on the Peyton Manning side of the ball.
But where there was a long running joke about how the Colts didn't have an offensive coordinator because it was just Peyton Manning's offense. Like he was calling the plays, he was calling the shots, he was calling the audibles, and it was just you let guys that talented do what they do. Because they're going to succeed more often than not.
All right, guys. These are the 5 possible plays that we're going to run this drive right here.
Computer blue.
Remember them.
Omaha.
Because when I say Omaha.
But I think to go back to your Browns or Packers is Aaron Rodgers 37.
37.
So you would assume with his injury history, he has 3 years. So if you take the Packers coaching job right now, you get Aaron Rodgers being owed like $30 million a season for the next 3 years. So you don't have as much money to go into the other positions that you obviously need help with. So you have to hit the mark on every single draft pick. And do you know how much pressure that is? Like, they tried to get Jimmy Graham to come in and, like, help the offense because they could get somebody who was proven for cheap. They couldn't go out and get, like, a top-tier tight end because there weren't really any top-tier tight ends to get unless you drafted one. And even then, like, you're taking a chance. I mean, they probably should have picked Dallas Goedert, who the Eagles took.
The Eagles jumped up to get.
Yeah, because he's going to be tremendous. But the Browns is... You don't have money tied up into anywhere. Like, you have Denzel Ward, who's going to be a star cornerback. Baker has proven to be at least a quality starter. Nick Chubb is a quality starting running back. Myles Garrett is going to be a star defensive lineman. Like, look at all the pieces that they have. The only thing that they're missing right now is a guy like Joe Thomas. Like, once they get their offensive line back set up with Jarvis Landry and Callaway, they have plenty of talent. That's why I think me and you, Alvin, both had them at like the 8-8 range. I don't remember what Andrew had them at.
Yeah, I definitely had them winning at least 7 games.
But I mean, and that was with Tyrod Taylor instead of Baker. But we knew that outside of quarterback, they had a lot of talent, and they have a lot of young talent. Because I think Jarvis Landry is only like 26 years old.
Yeah, he's really young.
So,
and they always played good defense.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely a better coaching job. But if I was going to take a job for 3 years, I would take the Packers job. I would just, if I'm trying to go like I want to create a legacy, I would take the Browns job. But if I'm like, I'm gonna go in, give me 3 years, let me win a Super Bowl, and then move on about my life.
You think the Packers are gonna win a Super Bowl in 3 years?
They could. Aaron Rodgers is good enough.
Well, there's a lot of teams that are good enough, but
it wouldn't. So it with football, it's very similar to the NCAA tournament, where really all it takes is one guy to get hot at one time. Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl because he played the best football in his life.
And he also had
for 4 games
to help him out.
They also had a really
he wasn't as good. And their defense wasn't the vaunted Ravens defense.
Well, it was a top 5 defense.
It was
top
still
3.
pretty good.
Was it top 3 that year?
It had to be.
Yeah, y'all are the ones with the laptop. Do I need to? If y'all want to look something up, y'all better. I don't have those numbers in front of me.
We need to hire a stats guy quick.
While we look that up, 2015, 12. Yeah, 2012.
That was a lot longer than I thought.
It was the year Littlefoot had his baby.
Yeah, I don't remember the year.
But while we find that out, Andrew, go ahead and go Endire for us.
My Endire works off of my fire. My fire was the Cowboys, and my Dire's the Cowboys fans.
The Cowboys fan.
I feel like
we're due for a letdown, and nobody sees it coming.
Against the Colts? The letdown against the Colts?
I don't know if it's against the Colts. I don't know if it's going to be in the playoffs. I don't know when it's going to be, but it's going to happen.
So
everyone's getting their hopes up now, and they're going to be let down.
Defensively, in 2012, when the Ravens won the Super Bowl, 25th total defense yards per game, 23rd passing yards per game, 23rd rushing yards per game. They were 19th in total offense, too. The fact that they won a Super Bowl was because Joe Flacco went absolutely out of his mind in the playoffs.
Was it because of that, or was it because the power went out at halftime?
Well, I mean, they were up a lot the 49ers came back because the power went out.
I thought the 49ers were losing or winning until it happened.
No.
Ravens
the other way.
winning.
No. And that was also the year where they beat the Broncos in double overtime because Peyton Manning decided that he wanted to throw a ball across his body, and it got intercepted, and the Ravens kicked a field goal to win the game 38-35. But yeah, that defense wasn't the vaunted Ravens defense that you see now and you saw in the early 2000s. That was Joe Flacco threw, I think, 12 touchdowns in 4 games and 1 interception.
I think that was more Anquan Bolden, but we'll keep it. All it takes is one guy to play it out of his mind. Eli Manning has 2 Super Bowls because in the playoffs he plays out of his mind. I mean, the front 4 was also really good. So Alvin, who's in dire for you? Because we don't need to talk about more Cowboys fans. So.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it's my Chicago Bulls.
Chicago Bulls.
More like bullshit right
A
now.
bunch of bullshit right now. They horrible loss to the Celtics. What was it? 57 point loss.
56.
Worst in franchise history. Like garbage.
Hey, I mean,
And then
bright side, Zach LaVine and Boylan had their heart-to-heart today, and they hashed things out.
Zach LaVine said this is a business, not a dictatorship, to Boylan, apparently. But then, of course, after that, then that's when you start hearing the reports. Players are going against the coach because he's running a real hard practice, whatever that means.
Making them do push-ups.
They're actually having to, be adults.
Yeah. And it got so out of control that they even reported that players went to the Players
union.
Association to complain about the practices that he's been running. I'm just like,
Pussies.
Are these guys in high school or like these are middle school kids? Like what? And
Man,
shit.
hey, to be fair, at Kruger Middle School, I watched one of our football coaches snap my best friend's index finger back into place after he dislocated it on the sidelines. He dislocated the finger. Coach came over, 7th grade, pops it back into place. No trainer, no nothing. No, you're out of the game. No. Old timer over here pops it back into place. You're good.
Boy, you pop it back in, you tape it up real nice.
Didn't even tape it. No.
Bruh.
He was a quarterback in his.
But like either way, like that's all it was back then. You just like, all right,
And
throw some spit on it, rub it in, you're good. Like
I mean, and that's not even. And that's not even what he's doing either. He's just holding them accountable.
Yeah.
Like he's not saying, okay, you're running wind sprints for 5 hours. That's not what he's doing. He's just holding them accountable to, watch film and practice hard. And
that lackadaisical practice didn't get them nowhere with Hoiberg. And like you need I feel like you need a stern coach to like light fire under somebody and shape them up.
From what I've been able to tell, Zach LaVine is a tremendous talent. Zach LaVine,
he's balling right now with the Bulls.
got traded from the Timberwolves probably because he also seems like the type of person who just kind of walks into a gym and is like, I'm better than everybody, give me the ball, let me play. And he doesn't go and he doesn't lead by example. He doesn't say, okay, well, I'm going to get into the layup line and make sure like I practice properly because, Wendell Carter Jr. needs to see a guy who's been in the league a few years doing things properly. Like, I mean, this is on a smaller scale.
But still, that's how the young guys get their work ethic.
In high school, when I was friends with a lot of the basketball team, I didn't make the team because of reasons that I could go on for a long time about. But I watched guys, the best players on the team, not listen to the coach. And so the guys who were the role players on the team, they didn't feel like they needed to listen to the coach.
Yeah, if you're a star player.
And in high school basketball, if you have a player who ends up going to a D1 school on a full ride, and you have a player who ends up playing in professional leagues around the world and being on an NBA summer league team, when you have that type of player in high school, there's no way that you shouldn't make it to at least the playoffs. Our senior high school team at Roosevelt with Cameron Moore went like 3-23.
R.I.P. Cam.
Do more. But he was the second best basketball player that I played with ever. The best basketball player I've ever played
Duncan.
with is Carlton Scott, who's the only guy to ever dunk on me. But he ended up going to Notre Dame on a full ride. He went to back-to-back semifinals at Madison, high school state semifinals at Madison. That's the type of team that you should have. But that was also a team that was well coached and where the best players were listening to the coach. Whereas on the other spectrum, the team that's losing to teams like Harlandale, who is, this is all San Antonio high school basketball, so people who might not be familiar with how bad that is. But it's like losing to the 0-16 Browns if you're the New England Patriots. You have to, on every level of sport, you have to be able to listen to coaching. I was never good at listening to coaching, but you look at the success that the Spurs have had and the Patriots have had over the last 20 years, and it's because their best player has said, I'm going to follow the coaching script, and that's going to make this player have to follow it because he's not going to be able to say, well, our star player doesn't follow it. Why do I have to follow it? And that's what Zach LaVine seems like he is. He seems like the person who's not going to listen to any kind of hard coaching. He's just going to want to go in and ball out. He's like Stephon Marbury. He's going to want to get his 30 points a game and get his money and go about his business, but he's not going to care if, at the end of his career, he's going to be bouncing around teams trying to win a title as a role player.
Well, then they're not eventually going to want you as a role player.
Right, because you're toxic to the environment. That's how I feel that the Bull situation is, because I think what the coach is doing is exactly what he needs to do. He just has people, and it seems to be headed by Zach LaVine, who need to understand that
he's just running a tight ship in practice.
You need to just grow up and be an adult.
I know that's why I'm with when Jimmy Butler came out and he was talking about his star players on the Timberwolves are pampered. All these new kids are pampered, man. They
Tide Pod babies.
It's fucking horrible. Because they didn't even say what he was doing in practice that was causing them to boycott practice.
He was just running a hard practice.
Yeah, that's all it said. He ran a hard practice. The players had a player only meeting, and then they brought the coaches in to have a player coach meeting, and then they still even went to the Players Association and still.
Wasn't this on a Sunday though?
I think this was Saturday.
I don't know.
Well, it was a Sunday after a loss. And so I think what they're saying, what I heard was that they were expecting to have the day off. It's usually a rest day. So running a hard practice on a rest day?
Not on my day off. You calling me in to work on my day off?
You're a basketball player.
I get why you're pissed off, but don't be a bitch about it, dude.
Yeah. Don't be a bitch about it. You can be mad, but you bitching about it.
You can.
This bitching is why we had a hard practice.
You can complain all you want, but. I have a different kind of work schedule now, but it's when y'all get called in on a day off, you bitch, you complain, you're kind of grumpy.
You don't answer the phone.
There's ways around it.
That's true too. But you go in, you work, you get paid, and you go about your business. It's just part of the job is understanding that sometimes you have to do shit that you don't want to do. But then when it comes time for people to get new contracts, people to get pay raises, people to get promoted, you know what the manager, coach, GM is going to want to do? They're going to want to promote the person who helped them elevate everything else. Like, they're not, if they constantly try to call you in, and you constantly say no, you don't answer your phone, when they're like, okay, well, who are we going to promote to a manager? They're going to be like, not that guy, because he never helped me out when another person called in sick.
He's not dependable.
Right, and that's kind of how trying to correlate real life jobs to
you lost
being...
You lost by 56 points. You expecting to have a day off? You expecting to have a day off after losing by 56, 57 points? Get the fuck out of here.
Like, I don't know what I would give to be able to play professional basketball.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, if I wasn't blessed to be 6'6" with a 42-inch vertical, like Zach LaVine was, but I would take a tenth of his pay to play professional basketball.
I'll gladly sit at the end of the bench.
I will
cheerlead for you.
I will gladly be your Luke Walton.
Exactly.
Let me be your Adam Morrison.
Exactly. I'll gladly play that role for a tenth of his.
You need somebody who can wave a mean towel.
I got you.
I'm Petey Pablo up in this bitch.
Oh god.
So we need to wrap up. My dire is the Chiefs, not only because they just didn't look the same against the Ravens, but they lost their starting running back because of the video and the
lion.
Yeah, the unfortunate decision by Kareem Hunt, and just the weird response to why they didn't know about it or didn't have the video or didn't do anything before the season, because this happened back in February. Mm-hmm. So it's just, I mean, kind of a slash NFL in a sense, but like the Chiefs are more impacted because they lose their second best offensive player. Like, Travis Kelce's their third best, I would say, and Pat Mahomes is their best. Like,
Tyreek Hill?
No. Kareem Hunt's better than Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
Because Kareem Hunt's their Zeke. Is you have to be able to run the ball. Like, if you can't run the ball, then they're just going to drop 8 back in coverage and double team Tyreek Hill the entire time.
I mean, if you could catch him, yeah.
Well, you just have a deep safety, so you can't run past the deep safety.
We know how to cover him, okay? But do they do that on the field?
No, because they had to protect for Kareem Hunt and Travis Kelce. So that's who's in dire. I'll start off Prophecies. The hot stove is on fire right now. MLB winter meetings.
Here we go.
Players are finally signing their contracts. People getting traded. The New York Yankees are back in business. They're going to have Manny Machado by the next time we record.
Oh.
Not the Phillies?
No. Manny Machado is going to be with the Yankees.
That's because his son wants to be in there.
I think it's... there's a lot of things. It's just Machado's personality gives off that New York vibe. The Yankees are not going to be afraid to just roll out the payroll for him.
But they don't have. I heard they was backing out of the Machado thing.
What I was listening to earlier was still saying that that they're more likely to go after Machado than Bryce Harper, because their outfield already has a lot of money rolled up into it.
And Bryce Harper doesn't want to shave.
Bryce Harper's going to the Cubs.
Okay.
So you get to keep your beard.
And you get to play with your childhood friend. But Machado, I think by the time next Tuesday rolls around, he would have announced his deal. I'm looking probably somewhere in the 10-year 275.
Damn, 10-year 275.
Yeah, not quite Giancarlo, but right there next to it. Alvin, your prophecy.
Well, Well, it's a two-par because the Raptors, they have a West Coast swing. Tonight they play the Clippers. Then they play the Warriors. And then, and then they play the Blazers. So I say they're going 0-3 in that stretch. Ooh. And also, the Tar Heels play Gonzaga. I'm going for my Tar Heels to upset them. Roger. For the heart.
It's like a,
not for the gut. This is for the heart.
Please, baby Jesus.
Yes.
Let North Carolina please upset Gonzaga.
Hey, who was it? Was it Texas or Tennessee?
Man, Tennessee played phenomenal. That was such a good game. Yes.
If they can do it, we can do it.
They're better defensively than you are.
Hey, take it easy. Take it easy, little man dream.
Andrew, your prophecy.
My prophecy, I've got Saturday night. Denver, Colorado. That was the Broncos taking a loss to Cleveland.
Hey.
Ooh.
Saturday night.
Okay. Oh, yeah, the Saturday night game, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, they're starting that.
Starting that shit again.
Yeah. Don't you have enough nights already, NFL?
Seriously, guys.
Which Chubb is going to be the better Chubb that night?
Nick.
Yeah, you know they're cousins, right? Yeah, Nick and Bradley Chubb are cousins.
Just a couple of chubs.
Yeah. It's getting a little chubby in here.
Cleveland says I got a chub.
And
Denver says I got a half chub.
That wraps up this edition. This has been the Benchwarmers Podcast. I'm Casey Coggins with Alvin Hebert.
And it's a Chubb's world.
And Andrew Lara.
See ya.
See ya next week.